Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com. I know many of you are aware of the fact that I followed the case, the redruM case that happened in Idaho in November of 2024. I refuse to say the evildoer's name. However, if I do refer to him, I will refer to him as number 163214 because that's his new name. And I hate that he's even getting to use numbers because I like numbers, but I think that would offend him to be known as a number and not his name. Anyway, the case has been solved. He admitted that he did these things. There was no reason for him to admit it except to avoid the death penalty because the evidence clearly showed that he was guilty, and I think he understood that it was his way out of the DP. Now, there had been a gag order, which I think was ridiculous. It served no one except to protect him, which I guess, he's got rights, unfortunately. But the gag order has been lifted, and things are starting to come to light. And not enough, but it's been said that probably within the next several months, we'll get a fuller picture of his level of depravity. I thought, however, that I would do a reading on what will be one of the more shocking things or surprising things that we'll find out regarding this case. Now, there's just the fact that 4 young adults' lives were taken in such a brutal way. I mean, one of the girls was at least 50 times. And that was Xana. And then Kaylee, I think more than 27, including her face, which was unrecognizable. What an animal. What an animal. I don't want to say mercifully because that sounds stupid, but perhaps Madison and Ethan were sleeping. Maybe they woke up, but their consciousness wasn't, I don't think how long their consciousness was how long they were conscious to know. But it's a dark place. It's a dark place. At any rate, we know some of those things, but I'd like to know, as the dust settles, whatever it is that the universe is willing to allow us to see or know, what will some of the more surprising or crazy things that we'll learn as information from the gag order, or as people feel free to talk. Okay, now to do this, I'm using the Tarot of Marseille by Fournier. Why am I using this one? It's kind of a friendly deck. It's not like a, scary deck, which would be appropriate for this horrific crime. The reason I'm using it is because I do want to connect with some people who are brand new to tarot, or not just tarot, but pip style tarot decks. And this might be one that some of those individuals who are new to TDM in particular might have, because it's not very inexpensive. It's a great deck. It's good for reasons such as, the suits have all the coins, all the cups have an orange background. All the swords have a blue background. So it's helpful. Let's see, coins has like a pale yellow green. And let's see, hopefully I'll find a baton that's very convenient. Of course not. But it's convenient, I think, in that regard. Here we have a baton, and they all have green backgrounds. It's helpful because the pattern of the color will help a new person with TDM or pip style decks to notice the occurrence of certain suits or the lack of certain suits in a spread. So every now and then I just like to use a deck that's mass produced, that's not that expensive, that new people on the block might be choosing, because not all tarot readers have the opportunity to purchase some of these high-end decks. And there's no reason why you can't be a proficient reader using an inexpensive deck. So I'll go off into my meditative place and I'll ask the universe just what I mentioned to you. And we'll be doing my signature spread. I got a pinky. So let's get started. Okie doke. Do a few on camera. Two of coins. Oh, the deck is upside down, so I don't read reversals. Two of coins. Another card of coins, 5 coins. This is an extremely well shuffled deck. The moon card, which possesses a disc. You know, there's a repeat of a pattern, although I am more inclined to interpret the card as the meaning of this card. But I do think it's interesting that there is a circular motif in all 3. Okay, we have 7 cups. Front and center of the core 9 of my signature spread is Justice. Well, no kidding. He got caught. And, you know, the question was, what will be more information that comes through? It could be relating to the justice system. It could be relating to LE. And here we have 6 swords, something being protected. Something perhaps not coming to light, since it does fall under the moon card. Now, typically I don't, when I do a read, you know, for a client or for myself, when I lay the cards, I don't like say what I'm thinking until I have all the cards down. This is more for your benefit and understanding how I interpret this spread, which of course is my own creation. And I guess I don't say it all the time, but you know, this spread, which I call my signature spread, is something I developed. And if you use it publicly, feel free, just give me credit for it. Now, putting down 3 rows of 3 is not something I invented. A lot of tarot readers do that. It's the inclusion of quintessential cards that I use that makes this my exclusive spread. Okay, here we have who I call my boyfriend card, but he's not my boyfriend here, that's for sure. Okay, we have the bottom left card in an angle with the moon card, leaving the situation. It could be an immature individual, somebody whose maturity is stilted. Oh, we have the devil card underneath justice. Wow, that's very interesting. And the Knight of Swords. Okay, so it could be 2 aspects of the same individual, right? You know, a young, immature individual, emotional, although he seems to be void of emotion. And then somebody who rushed in with a weapon to do something wicked. Now, for those of you new to my channel or new to understanding my signature spread, I add up the cards that have numeric value. The only exception would be the court cards. Some people argue with me, this is my spread, this is how I do it. If you want to adapt that to yourself, okay, you can add numeric value. This would be 11. I think this would be 12 if you want. But I just really add up the cards that have numeric values on them. See, she agrees. So I add them up. If they exceed 22, I minus 22 until I get a number from 1 to 21. And in the event we get 0 or 22, in either case, that would represent the Fool. Here, since we have 2 court cards, the obvious quint card for this row would be the Devil card. So this row has the Devil twice. I'll be right back with the cards. Now you'll notice something that I think is very interesting in the nighttime cards, the moon and the star, and this is rare in a star card, that we have a dark sky, we have a nighttime sky. A lot of times in the tarot decks we have, you know, the white background or a cream colored background. In this particular deck, I love that the sky is really dark in the star card and also in the moon card, but it gives an extra level of meaning when the star card appears as a dark sky, especially as the overall quint for the entire spread. For the overall quint of the entire spread, I add up the numeric value of the quint cards of each row, deduct 22 until I get a number between 1 and 21. So why would we have the star card, which seems hopeful, right? Well, it could be a few things. And it's also right next to the world card, which is a manifestation, meaning I think it means that things will be brought to light. There will be a flood, right? There will be a flood of information, that being brought forth. I'm not saying that we necessarily know what it is just from reading these three, but there will be a flood of information coming in, okay? What we want, the manifestation card means we want information. Here we have something to me suggests that law enforcement did keep something secret, and I don't know what. The Six of Swords looks like communication that's being protected in the way I understand it. 6 is being a perfect number. So the Suit of Swords being air and communication. It could have to do with something on the computer. Maybe it's something that they're not aware of at this stage, and maybe it'll be something that some sleuth figures out that perhaps even law enforcement didn't know. But I think something that is either has been held secret due to LE, or perhaps LE will uncover it now that they're, now that there are some independent sleuths, might share it with LE, I don't know. Since we have 7 of Cups, perhaps it's regarding the weapon. Maybe the weapon will be discovered. There aren't a bunch of cards with the Suit of Swords, so I don't necessarily know that it's, screaming weapon, weapon, weapon. But this particular row is kind of interesting to me, The biggest secret in my head, and I'm the one who's doing the reading, is probably where is that weapon? People want to know why. There's no reason why. There's no reason good enough why. So the reason for me is immaterial. There's no reason to go into somebody's home and do that. There's just no reason. So I'm not really concerned. Well, not that I'm concerned. I mean, it would be, people who study these brains, they want to know why. But there's no good enough reason why 163214 would have done this, other than his level of depravity. And I think that these two cards, one above the other, does speak of depravity. The information will come, right? And it's just a whole new level of depravity of him. Maybe it was something extremely immature in his mind that wasn't mature enough. Obviously his brain doesn't work like a typical human being's brain. In some ways he's, this authoritative young knight, knight who thinks he's smarter than anybody else in the room. But he's also a handicapped individual in his mind, I mean, that the little valet of cup could be a number of things. It could be a charming young person. In the context of this question, it's somebody who's, we're talking about 163214, right? It's somebody whose mind is not at the level of his body. And there's something very wrong with his head and his thinking process. So this is definitely a manifestation of, for me, the information will come through. It'll have to do with, maybe we'll get something about the why. Maybe somebody will come forth and have figured it out. Maybe there's something that's been hidden, not necessarily because law enforcement is crooked or anything like that, but perhaps even they aren't aware of something. I'm kind of thinking that it has to do with something he did at night. Something will manifest, something that's been protected, maybe through, online stuff, because he did clean his computers. I heard, and I don't know where they got their information. I suspect I believe it was through, what's her name? If I can think of the woman's name, I'll put it down below. But I was just listening to a podcast where she said that there's evidence that he left instruction for his father to clear his online presence, or in the event that I'm, something happens to me, do this, So I thought that was very interesting. So there's a chance, that maybe somebody will be able to unearth something on the computer regarding the location, I think, of maybe the weapon. And then this top row, it opens strongly with Earth, and then the Moon card, right? We have Earth, land. This could look like a circuitous road, this could look like driving. Now, the beauty about TDM is that we can look at it as two and coins. We can do that, right? But the beauty of TDM or PIP style decks is that you can also look at it as visual impact. So I sort of see this as driving on land and maybe burying. We have 4 coins, which is Earth, and then it's like this, protecting something. So something perhaps is buried on land near water. And like the Star card, it happened at night. Now, we can look at the Moon card, as I do, as something trying to come to the surface, but the prey is preventing it from coming to the surface, but they're distracted by the moon, and maybe it will come to the surface. So perhaps what it is that will come out, and if maybe, I think it's very unlikely that the weapon will ever come to the surface. I think personally, I don't necessarily agree with everything the cards will say, but I'm just interpreting the cards. I think it's unlikely that we'll ever find the weapon. However, in seeing this spread, I'm thinking there was a circuitous road, a drive above water. Then this looks like on land, buried near water at night. Now, why the Empress up here? Well, maybe the information will come through a woman in a position of power. We have been seeing women in positions of power across the board for so many reads. It's very related to this and otherwise, So I think it's very interesting. Women power. And women who he hated. Obviously he hated women, So I think it would be great if a woman in a position of power is the one who cracked his case or came forward with the information. I also think it's very interesting. The one suit is missing is batons. We don't see any suits of batons, but what I think is very interesting is that cups touch each other, swords touch each other, land touches each other, as if to reinforce one another, right? Reinforce, in case I missed the message the first time, the second time. And here as well, immature mind, an immature mind, right? But it also does double duty as something near water, perhaps. Land near water. Justice was served. Okay, justice was served, but maybe through law enforcement, something else will come out, or somehow connected to law enforcement. I don't know. I think it's more than just justice. Justice has been served. It could be that something above and beyond what we already know through the justice or LE might surface, or it could be about them, something that they tried to hide, or just something that they were unaware of and will come to the surface in the next few months. Oh, and for the Devil card, which obviously was in play already, I picked the Tarot Classic, which is out of print, unfortunately. It was a deck from, I guess, the 1970s. It was one of the first TDM decks I purchased. It's not like perfectly TDM because the words aren't in French, and they have words like the High Priestess and the Hierophant, because I think they were trying to appeal to the audience of Rider-Waite-Smith, but they were still using, they still, U.S. game systems still wanted to see, I guess they wanted to test the market and see how people might embrace a deck like this. Obviously influenced by a Swiss deck. And in my mind, once I became familiar with the Gassman Tarot, my assumption was that this deck was in large part influenced by Gassman Tarot. And if not them, then some Swiss deck. So it's a great deck. And I have used it many, many, many times. Okay, friends, I hope that this has been interesting to you. Until next time, peace, stay well, be kind, and be brave.